God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, and the courage to change the things we can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. My mind is filled with negative ways of perceiving, thinking, and feeling. It has caused my life to be counterproductive. I lie, hide, cheat, steal. I have adopted those ways as the primary value system of my life. It has caused my life so much misery, so much pain. It's that value system that is keeping me in conflict with my environment. Grant me the courage, dear God, to change that, and the wisdom to know the difference between the lie, hide, cheat, love, and respect dynamic way of life.
Dr. Sylvester Outley, PhD and licensed social worker, is trained in psychology, social work, criminology, and philosophy. He is Philadelphia's leading activist for the homeless, the drug addicted, and the disenfranchised population. A dynamic man with a dynamic mission. A self-made man who has developed himself through his own unique philosophy and who is now using this philosophical approach to treat thousands of hardcore people with various addicted personalities to lead self-fulfilling and productive lives. He has been recognized for his work and contributions by the former governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Robert Casey Sr., and two previous Philadelphia mayors, W. Wilson Goode and Ed Rendell.
One of the most successful programs in helping me achieve this goal was Dr. Sylvester Outley's Self, Inc. Self Incorporated really took the bull by the horns. It really emphasized a change in lifestyle, first and foremost by bringing the concept of clean and sober to Philadelphia's shelter systems. Just that concept alone, just that rule, that in of itself was a new dynamic that caused individuals to take a look at their lives, change their lifestyle, and begin to position themselves to be able to grow, to be able to learn, and to be able to take advantage of opportunities. Self Inc. didn't just stop there. It didn't just demand that you were clean and sober and just get shelter, but it demanded that you did something, that you accept and get involved in training, that you learn things that will help you break the cycle of homelessness. And really, the test of a society is not just do we keep our people out of the cold so they don't freeze to death. The test of our society should be, do we take the most vulnerable individuals and nurture them and create opportunity for them, give them the tools to help themselves. Because in the end, that's what life's about. I don't believe any individual wants to be taken care of for the rest of their life. I think every individual wants the dignity of a job, of being able to live a life on their own, to be able to be self-sufficient. And Dr. Outley has been one of the chief disciples of all of those fundamental theories.
I'm an addicted person. I've been addicted. I come out of this stuff 47 years ago, but once addicted, always addicted. We have abusive, addicted ways of relating to our environment. That abusive, addicted ways of relating to your environment keeps you shut out because your main line keeps you at a distance. You can't get a job, you can't get a decent place to live, you can't get enough money to live on. Main line shuts you out.
In terms of hindsight, that over the period of the last 6 years that I've been a part of the program, I've seen it grow, I've seen it expand, I've seen it mature and I see it now as one of the premier programs in the country of dealing with not just the person who's homeless, but dealing with the total person from not only from a point of view of their addiction or their problem, but also from a point of view of what they need to do to become self-sufficient. And I think that's the thing that separates this program from all the rest. Plus that, I think Doc has a view of the whole person, of the person actually not just simply being compartmentalized, but look at the total person and say this person needs not only help with the addiction, need help also with understanding who they are as a person, why they are where they are, and number three, how they can come out of it and who they can become in the end. And that, in my view, is what makes this program so unique and so strong.
Dr. Sylvester Outley, the founder, CEO, and president of Self Incorporated, has developed a new faith-based clinical philosophy that is based on spiritual principles and behavioristic psychology that he uses to redirect misdirected minds. This philosophy, which he has coined the Outleyan clinical philosophy, uses a Gestalt paradigm, which is comprised of using the mind, body, and soul. The Outleyan clinical philosophy is based on the concept that if a person can balance their brain and body chemistry, that person will have the strength and direction to be benign and productive.
The philosophy was developed by me as a way of studying my own life. And so the philosophy is going to be very subjective and very empirical. But it is a philosophy that is designed to redirect the misdirected minds of people. The philosophy is called Outleyan, O-U-T-L-E-I-A-N philosophy. And that is basically it's a draw from the behavioristic school of thought, the Watsonian, Skinnerian people. I've patterned myself after them very much, and there's a way of developing this philosophy. However, the philosophy does go to a different place than where Skinner or John Watson would go. I have a very spiritual base to my philosophy. It's a pragmatic faith-based philosophy. Philosophy is influenced by the metaphysical sciences and the cybernetic sciences. And the metaphysical sciences is what I've used to interpret biblical concepts. So the metaphysical understanding of biblical concepts has helped me to put this philosophy together. When I use the term cybernetic, it's basically just talking about automatic processes. Like in the biblical sense, it says you will reap what you sow. That's sort of an automatic. Or the measure you give, so shall you receive. That's sort of automatic. And in psychology, we talk a lot about the involuntary system. I'm using the cybernetic sciences as a way of understanding the involuntary system, the whole biological system, in relation to human behavior. My approach to helping drug addicts and people who are addicted to crime, and my approach is to help people to not focus on the crime or not focus on the drugs, but to focus on the weaker parts of themselves as a way of strengthening themselves. So you'll look at what it is, you focus on yourself. In the rooms they talk a lot about focus, to keep the focus on you. You need to focus on you in terms of how you're coping with life. If you're coping with life in some fearful way where you're hiding and spending the bulk of your time trying to stay in hiding so people don't discover you, it means that you are you are not discovering yourself. You're not letting yourself be known to yourself, and it leads on into self-abandonment. You actually you learn to hate yourself. You learn, and at the same time, you'll smile at yourself while hating yourself. So you're into a lot of mixed emotions like that.
Unbalanced chemistry will cause an individual to be in conflict with his or her environment. This will result in cultural pain, fear, guilt, pity, shame, and doubt. This cultural pain is medicated by both internal unbalanced chemistry, lust and greed, as well as injecting external mood-altering chemicals into one's body.
But I have learned to be strong enough to stand as an example to people and to help people to find themselves and to teach people how to do that, and the various and these various organizations that I've been a part of. When I'm working with drug addicts and homeless people and people returning from prison, it's the population that I spend the bulk of my time with. I spend 90% of my professional time with that population, simply because I'm from that population and I understand the way they carry themselves. I understand a lot of their hiding places and how to reach them, and out of jail since age 11. And I was hardened in that. I had all the criminal codes nailed into me. I was a hardcore criminal, and nothing anybody could say would stick, because they couldn't penetrate me. And doing time didn't, I've been through so many jails and penitentiaries, it's incredible. Doing time didn't faze me at all. But once I was up for life, and the best they were offering me was a 50-year plea bargain. That penetrated, and then and about 2 years of processing that situation, 18 months to 2 years of processing that situation, my lawyer finally got it down to 25 years and then down to 10 years, between 5 years for state and 5 years for feds for transporting drugs throughout across the state lines. Well, I was so happy to get 10 years as opposed to life, that the process itself shook me clean.
Dr. Outley's way of viewing God is that it is a source without structure, size, texture, gender, shape, or space. This is because God encompasses all the aforementioned aspects. He calls God ultimate, universal dynamics.
Short of God could have penetrated me, and I wasn't about God, so I wasn't paying it. I wasn't trying to deal with God in a sense. I wasn't trying to relate to God, but it took a power greater than myself, that is both inside of me and outside of me, to penetrate. And without knowing that was happening to me, it was happening. I was looking for something that was great, that was powerful enough to change my way of thinking and feeling and behaving. So the term God then is not used in a traditional sense, and certainly doesn't have any devotional attachments to it. It's all practical, as a practical understanding of the power of the universe that I call love. Love is God and God is love, as stated in the Old Testament. And then God to me became that source that I could relate to, that I could trust. There was nothing in my life that I could trust. You know, a hardcore criminal trust is nothing. So there was nothing that I could trust, and in order to dig some of my bottom lines out and clean me up and cause me to be a better functional human being, I needed to penetrate myself. God is a strange way. I was practically illiterate, and I was trying to read, learning to read by reading philosophy. And I picked up a book where Nietzsche was questioning God, and Nietzsche says, had this whole concept, God is dead. And so it's interesting, and it's an interesting concept, but I couldn't understand how that could be. So I went to the Bible to try to understand what Jesus had to say about God being dead, and I got hooked onto Jesus. So, but I didn't get caught into any religion about it. It's just that Jesus had practical ways of explaining things, and that's what I mean by the metaphysical understanding of biblical concepts. Jesus talks about the kingdom of God being within. I thought the kingdom of God was all the money and stuff that I was chasing, and the women that I kept involved with me was my kingdom, and the drugs was my kingdom. And Jesus comes along saying the kingdom of God is within. So Nietzsche is saying God is dead. Jesus is saying God is within you. And I started paying attention to that. I started trying to understand what Jesus had a reference to, the kingdom of God within me. So certainly I had gotten into enough trouble with my own way of sizing up my kingdom that I was willing to cut that loose. But I didn't understand this internal kingdom that Jesus had reference to. I saw some change in my life. I began to see that God is an abstract and God does work, and that I began to then pay more attention to the abstract ways that God works. And so the kingdom of God this kingdom of God deep down within led me to an understanding that I need to understand how things are working inside of me, and how that hooks up with with my being human, made in God's image. So I studied all that stuff to get an understanding what is meant by human, made in God's image, what is meant by God, period. And over a period of maybe 20 years, I began to come together with some clear understanding of the concept of God and the kingdom of God, relation to God. So God then became that source that I could trust to go to work me down deep down inside of myself towards that kingdom that Jesus talks about, and help me to understand the value of right doing as opposed to wrongdoing. So I began to dispel my wrongdoing by putting right doing in its place. Power is in understanding who you are in relation to your environment of people, places, things, situations, circumstances. You know, I've come to circumstances like poverty that I've been hard hit by poverty. There's circumstances like situations like my criminal life has led me into jails and penitentiaries, and all the beat-ups that I've gone through, and near death. There are situations like being practically killed. I practically killed myself on drugs, a heroin habit so long, such a criminal habit that just kicking my habit cold turkey was close to death. It caused me it caused me serious problems to kick my habit. I find myself bleeding from both ends, my rectum and my nose, just gagging myself to death trying to kick a habit. This last time in jail. So when I look back at all that stuff, and I began to see how the intangible God was trustworthy enough, and it was the only thing that was trustworthy enough that I would let deep down inside of me, and that's how I began searching myself. That's how God became a real entity in my life, because I had to have God in order to do the search. There was no other source that I could trust.
But God I could trust. I knew God wouldn't hurt me. God wouldn't kick me in the teeth. I know God would forgive me. It would not be, God would not be frightened of my criminal acts, and God would not be scared of me doing something to God. So it all worked out, and I wasn't afraid of God, and God wasn't afraid of me, and so I had a good friend there, and so I began to get deep down inside of me, working out those what we call in psychology distorted values that gave misperceptions and kept me misdirected. So I'm really teaching myself the disadvantages of letting myself go wild with greed and lust, which was my total way of life. Greed and lust. Life with me, power, greed, lust. I wore 45 on my side, which was the automatic weapon of my day. I wore that on my side day and night. I even slept with the thing on my side. So I was, we were called street gangsters, and I was truly a number one street thug. I had money. I thought I had a group of women that were mine at any time. I thought I had the skills. I thought I had prestige. I thought I was God. I'd make a big sting. And I had drugs all around me. I thought I was God. You love for your own benefit, not for the benefit of another. You don't hate a person who is sick enough to do you dirt. Because when you do, you're letting that person into your head, and then you come out with a vindictive response to that person's dirt, and you're in just as much trouble as the sick person. So I'm beginning to understand this stuff in that way, but it took me a long time to get to that. A good 2 years to get to that understanding. But once I understood it, then I could understand myself in relation to the rest of my environment. You don't hate things because they are not of your kind. You just don't associate with it, you know? You leave, as Jesus says, you leave what ceases be ceases, and you leave what God be God's. Of developing myself in the state penitentiary, so I had learned to work in a way that I was a roebuck of a man. I had muscles, and I had definitions all over the place. Matter of fact, when I walked into the room where the marshals were waiting for me, they just bucked their eyes, they looked at me. I was Mr. Clean when I walked in there. They looked at me and said, "This." Looked watched the other. "You see that nigga?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Nigga, where you come from?" It's Retrieve Farm. I said, "Damn, they make niggas like that on Retrieve Farm? I never seen a nigga like you before." It's just, look at that nigga. It's a picture of hell. Look at him. So they made a big fuss of that. Well, I was a picture of hell, but it wasn't so much. It wasn't just the work. It was all cleaning up the internal. And the strength, I didn't have things worrying me, and I was willingly working at things that was benevolent, and so it gave me a good physical facade, and it gave me a good strong internal grip. I became so clean and so strong inside of myself that it was reflected outside, and the outside reflection kept people wanting to get closer to me, because they could trust what they saw there. So when I got to the Texarkana Penitentiary, they were going through a race riot thing there, where the official was just starting to integrate white and blacks. Now they always had white and blacks in that penitentiary, but they had a white wing and a black wing, and they never let the two come together. The whites eat at a certain time, blacks eat at a certain time, whites go to the yard at a certain time, blacks go to the yard at a certain time. Even when you're going on sick call, you have to, you didn't mix with the whites. So when I got there, they were mixing all that, and boy, tension was tough. You could cut tension with a knife. It was tough going there. There was so much hatred, and that was tough time. It was actually much worse than the state penitentiary, which was all work. Here it wasn't hardly any work. I could do the work without thinking of it. I mean, there wasn't enough work to for me to work my nervous energy off. Actually, I had to ask the warden for permission to
to run around the fence road as a way of working off energy, because they didn't have enough work for me to work my energy off. But that race stuff was so intense. I had worked myself into a clean understanding of myself, and I was practicing it, and people were relating to that. Now, this was during the Black and Beautiful days. This is late 50s and early 60s. Black and Beautiful. And the Muslim was just coming out, Malcolm X, with the blue-eyed devil, and so the blacks are running around singing the blue-eyed devil and the blue-eyed devil and the blue-eyed devils and blue-eyed devils. And the whites didn't know what the hell they were talking about, because Malcolm was just getting started with his own stuff at that time. But the whites had their thing with those dirty, worthless niggers, those goddamn dirty, worthless niggers, goddamn dirty, worthless niggers, and the blacks had the Peckerwoods and the honkies and the blue-eyed devils. So they were just name calling one another wherever they could get away with it. And now blacks really had no stance there, because the penitentiary was there was more whites doing time there, because it was a medium security. There's more whites doing time there than blacks, and all the guards was white. And so the blacks running around there talking the talk that they were talking often got them into serious trouble, both with the officials and the inmates. Well, I was neutral. I didn't have that much to say about who was wrong, and calling whites honkies and Peckerwoods and stuff like that. I didn't have anything, and I didn't have anything with the to do with blacks with their blue-eyed white devils and stuff like that. I just related to people as people, and I stood out from amongst them all, just being who I was, the same as I did in the state penitentiary. And in a year's time, people were starting to come to me to ask questions about this racial stuff. And when they talk to me about those goddamn niggas, they're such and such and such, and those goddamn niggas, and they put those goddamn niggas with us, and I said, why are you talking to me about all of this stuff? So I'm a black man too, and they think because they didn't have me associated. I'm black, and I'm kinky haired, and I'm the spitting image of what they're calling those goddamn worthless niggas. And yet he's talking to me. So when I said, why are you talking to me like this? I mean, well, you're different. I said, yeah, well, don't you think that people are different? So I'm giving a message in that way. So everybody's different. Some are different in the right way, some is different in the wrong way. But you see people in terms of who they are. Does that make sense? So people began to come to me as a philosopher, to give me a pass to move throughout the institution to help counsel people down. And it was basically this beginning of this clinical philosophy that I was talking. And I talked a lot of people down. A lot of people learned to make some sense, because all I was talking, I wasn't talking religion, I wasn't talking race, I wasn't talking anything. But what's in this? Your way of thinking is what's in that for you? What are you getting out of your way of thinking? Do you think it's it's time to make some changes? Don't you think some changes around? Don't you think if everything is on some kind of individualistic basis? Just talking sense to people. When I left that penitentiary, I had the week before leaving, I had guards coming by 2 weeks before my leaving to wish me well. The ones that was doing night shift, so because they knew that I would be gone when they come on the ones who knew that they would be gone at the time that I would be released was coming by to wish me well. And when it came time that morning for me to leave, there was guards stacked in at least 15 deep along the wall to shake my hand and wish me well, leaving the penitentiary. Now, when I got to the outside, this philosophy still continued to work, because my first job was working with an institution with institutional boys, pre-delinquent and delinquent boys. Some of them were adjudicated and some was pre-adjudicated, but they're all of the delinquent nature. And here is where I really had some practice in this philosophy now. That institution really benefited, that Texarkana Penitentiary really benefited from, as they said, you're probably the most powerful single force within this penitentiary. You know, when I went to work for these boys was bad boys. They were bad news, man. They'd leave the institution. Once you put them to bed, they 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, they crawl out the windows and down the fire escapes, go out and burglarize and break in cars and joyride cars and and they was mischievous in there. They were just all kinds of mischief. They would stand in the windows and piss on people. The window was on the institution set right on the street with the sidewalk coming. So when you go to the window, the sidewalk is running right under the window. They go to the window and piss on people's head passing on the sidewalk. Those boys, they were 12 to 18. Some of those kids were as big as I am. So, and they were rough. And they run in gangs, they run in packs. They was tough. I challenged that. I had total control of those boys. Control in the sense that they would do what I asked them to do, not in the sense that I manhandled them. I never had that gorilla. I had given up that totally. But I had the look, and I had the purpose, and I had everything that those boys respect. As Bob Killer once said to me, one of the boys, a 16-year-old, he says, I was disciplining him. He said, "Sil, I hate the fuck out of you because you're so goddamn tough. But I respect the fuck out of you because you just right." I left that institution to go to school. I left there to go to Goshen College. And the boss said, "Why do you want to go to college?" Hell, you know everything already. So why do you want to go to college? So I'm illiterate. I need to go to college for some academic understanding. So, all right, he said, "If you're practical," he said, "but I can buy you a degree." I said, "That isn't what that won't help my illiteracy, buying me a degree." So he went to the board, and the board said, "Oh, well, if he wants to go to college, don't stand in the way of it. As a matter of fact, we'll pay his way." So that institution became, when I left that institution almost flunked, just went under, because the institution was basically me and the boys. Me and the boys. Now they had social workers there, they had child care workers there. I was the boss of the child care workers and recreation workers and what have you. But the social workers, I wasn't the boss of them. They had degrees, but they all had to depend on me. So when I left there, those adjudicated boys just went. So they were picking them up more regularly and keeping them in jail more regularly, calling on the institution more regularly. So things just went really into a bad place. And a couple of times I had to leave college to go back to try and help out with some stuff there. But that institution became totally dependent on me. From Goshen College, I learned to study social work there, master's degree in social work from Penn, undergraduate degree from Goshen College, and a PhD in philosophy that turns it's used in this whole concept of clinical philosophy. But you can very well see then that in social work, I learned about the Rogerian stuff in undergraduate school. So I know about the Maslowian self-actualization stuff, the Rogerian, the non-directed stuff. I learned that stuff before I even learned about Watson and Skinner. I learned about those guys in the undergraduate school. So when I got to graduate school, I could study these guys along with the Ronchian and the Freudian and the Glasonian and the Adlerian. So those guys all, and a lot more of those big names that I learned at the University of Pennsylvania. So when you put all of that together, I got a real rich background in social work, a serious psychoanalytic background in social work. So when I pick up I went to the Union Institute for a PhD, I was able to give them a curriculum of studying my own life. And when I wrote that, it took me a couple of years to work that out with them, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and finally they accepted my curriculum. I was able to study my own life and as a way of studying for a PhD. But studying my own life had all of the psychoanalytic background into it, and all of the experience that I had from the prisons and from the street and from the boys. And I put all that together and I come up with this clinical philosophy. Everything that I do is a study of humanity. It's a study, and it's not an intellectual study. It's more of an empirical, it's a subjective empirical study of people. And it all comes from relating myself to the situations of others and trying to pick it up on an empirical level. I can measure it out, I can see it, I know it's real. That's why I'm calling it empirical, because I know it's real.
Out of a misdirected, conditioned mindset, the human mind does not secrete a balanced chemistry that is conducive to well-being, and therefore people spend the bulk of their energies covering up part of who they are because they do not want to expose their true self.
Your brain doesn't think. The brain is an electrical, mechanical device. Brain doesn't think. The brain responds to the pressure, responds to weight. The weight comes from your perception. You see things you like, and it causes the brain it causes what we call the electrical fallouts to settle on the dendrites. Predisposition from previous things that you see. So you got a predisposition, you got precipitating factors out there, and all of that then causes the dendrite to catch the electrical fallout. When the dendrite gets its load, that's a little gadget device around the cell. When the dendrite gets its load, that load goes into the internal cell, and the cell fires. And when the cell fires, you got what they call neuron transmitters in. The neuron transmitters flows right down the axon to the synapse. And the synapse manufactures those chemistries into feelings, attitudes, and behavior. So if you got off chemistry, you're going to have off attitudes and behavior. You got off attitudes and behavior, you're going to have off, people are going to be offing you out there.
Dr. Outley shows how the human mind becomes misdirected and conditioned over years of practice. He points out that this conditioning is not conducive to the well-being of the individual. More importantly, Dr. Outley shows various ways to break out of the conditioned mindset.
Truth, honesty, gives the person the base to have good freedom of choice. That base becomes like ability to process one's life. So an honest expression of one's true way of feeling is a value system that keeps a life in its purity. And then for a life to reach that point means that the life then has developed some virtues like forgiveness and humility and ability to accept differences, stuff like that. These are virtues that strengthens a life and hold the strength in life. Whereas the opposite side of that is the personality. That's that's all what I call the opposites of principles. Personalities has to do with the things of world, money being the big one, sex being, I don't know which is the biggest, and they are all good. Money, we need money, money is good. We need sex, sex is good. We need bread, bread is good. We need all of these things. But when these things transcend this, when this value system gets bigger than this value system, then we have a personality-driven mind or a body-driven mind, a body driven by its instincts. And a body-driven mind is looking for instant gratification. It's looking for ways to gratify itself. Whereas a principle-driven mind is looking to make others happy, as opposed to you make yourself happy by making others happy. It's called unconditional giving. Over here is selfish. We deal outside of ourselves, and we are oriented to that. We are schooled in it. We are oriented to it. We're stuck with it, and we don't know how to get out of that. And that's right across the board, right across the human race. I don't care whether you're white, black, rich, poor, male, female. We're just struck down with that old orientation. I would say that's at least a 5 million year lag there. Look at the kind of stuff that we know how to make and build. We can fly all over the universe. We can go all to the moon and stuff like that, and yet we can't behave well enough to get along with one another across the table. I had to create Self-Incorporated to put this stuff into some kind of a package where it can I can train more people to be with me, and expose more people to the way we operate as a way of helping people to get better with their lives. So Self-Incorporated is built on a love and respect foundation. And as I said, love is God. That's the vertical. The respect is horizontal. So when you look at that, it gives you a straight clue as to how God is the universe. Horizontal is the world. When you look at that, it just puts you into puts you in the best position that you could possibly think of. This organization is running about something like 800 contacts a month, and which means that we got about 600 people that in this program at any given time. They are sheltered like a 200-bed shelter, 100-bed shelter, which gives us 300 beds for single men. And then we have the outpatient program that is running about 400 people, 400 to 500 people a month through that. And we have transitional housing and criminal justice. You got another 100 people there, and we got your outreach and your step down program. You got your Supernova program. There's actually 65 beds of Supernova program. So all in all, you got more than about 600 people in this program at any one given time, and we have what we call a success rate. You have to sort of look at what you're saying when you say success. Whether a person is off the drugs for a month or 2 months or 6 months or a year, get off of the drugs and become a productive person who's able to hold a job and make good use of their money. A person who can return to their family and become a good family person. So it's all ways of measuring what you call success. But some 80% of the people that, well, I say that in the front of the program, where we have our largest turnover, we got about 70-75% of retention there. But once you get past that, that's 25 or 30% turnover. Once you get past that, our turnover is something like 15-20%, and if you get to 6 months beyond, you're in at 5 and 10%. So, and we got in the city of Philadelphia, we got literally thousands of people who are making it out there. All of this warring and stuff that people are doing is so chaotic. This is so far beyond the way our intelligence, so far beneath our intelligence is incredible. But we're stuck on stupid. I think we have to expand. We think we have to take over. We think all you have to do is be in charge of yourself and have some trust in yourself and some faith in yourself, and in that part of you that is called human made in God's image, that mind that has no structure, no gender, no size, no shape, no texture. When I talk about the human race being at something like a 2+ million social lag, that's what I'm talking about. Because we can make things, believe me, we look at these computers and things we do, we can make things incredibly. We have all kinds of incredible ways of making things, but we can't make ourselves behave.
And that's what you're talking problematic behavior.
Yeah, problematic behavior.
And this problematic behavior causes all the stress that's in our life.
It causes the stress and all the social unrest throughout the nation. We got wars and crimes, and what we do is try to deal with it outside of ourselves. We send people to the war to shoot and kill some other people. The crime, we don't deal with the problem. We deal with the symptoms. We are symptom-oriented, while at the same time, our chemistry is driving us to behave in the way that we behave. Now, it's a simple thing to turn into yourself and clean up your chemistry. If we did that in 1 year's time, we'd have a different world. We could revolutionize the world just by turning into ourselves. 1 year's time, we could revolutionize the world.